Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rethink how we spend our free time. We're unpacking how stepping away from those instant gratification habits and leaning into slow, deliberate hobbies instead can literally rewire your brain. I mean, we all have hobbies, right? But what if the things you do just for fun could actually make you sharper, more disciplined, and honestly, significantly more valuable? Well, let's dive right in and explore exactly how that works.
So, while most people are out there wasting time on hobbies that offer nothing but cheap, instant dopamine, you know the drill, zombie scrolling through TikTok for hours, or binge-watching Netflix until you literally pass out on the couch, a rare few are quietly doing something else. They're engaging in pursuits that give them a massive, long-term advantage. These aren't just for entertainment. They actively upgrade your mental hardware. The catch? They require the two things most people completely avoid: patience and delayed gratification.
To really get a handle on this, we'll break it down into 5 key areas. First, we'll look at the instant dopamine trap. Second, upgrading your cognitive power. Third, the art of observation. Fourth, communication and borrowed wisdom. And finally, the sheer power of patience. So let's start with part 1, the instant dopamine trap and why most people quit. You see, these 7 brain-changing hobbies, they're largely ignored by the masses, and it's precisely because they don't give you a quick fix. True growth demands delayed gratification. Honestly, on day 1, these pursuits aren't all that exciting. They're slow, they can be deeply frustrating, and yeah, they might even feel a little boring at first. Most people quit right out of the gate because we're so conditioned to expect that immediate chemical reward, right? But by quitting, they are completely missing out on the incredible growth that's waiting just on the other side of that initial friction. Moving on to part 2, upgrading your cognitive power through language, music, and chess. Let's look at our first rare hobby, learning a new language. Now, most of us learn a language for travel, right? But believe it or not, that is actually the smallest benefit. Every single conversation in a new language forces your memory into overdrive and massively boosts pattern recognition. Research actually links this directly to cognitive flexibility, which is your brain's ability to switch between different concepts seamlessly. So, it's not just about ordering a coffee in Paris without sounding foolish. You're literally learning to think before you speak. And hey, in a world where almost everyone speaks just one language, speaking 2 makes you instantly more valuable, both professionally and mentally. Then we have our second hobby, playing an instrument. Guys, this is a true neurological marvel. It requires your eyes, your ears, your hands, and your memory to all fire at the exact same time. Very few things demand that level of total brain integration. Plus, it really teaches you that real progress only comes from small, repeated improvements. I mean, nobody just sits down and masters the piano or flawlessly plays a song on the guitar overnight, right? It takes thousands of tiny, incredibly humbling repetitions. And that process, it trains you to stop expecting instant success in literally every other area of your life. And that brings us to the sequential mindset of a chess player, which is our third rare hobby. At first glance, sure, chess looks terribly slow. But beneath that supposedly boring board is one of the most elite mental training tools ever created. If you play enough games, something wild happens. You actually stop reacting emotionally. You start making decisions purely based on logic because you quickly learn that every single move has consequences. It forces you to think several steps ahead. Ultimately, this logical, patient mindset spills over into your real life, your business, and your relationships. Because at the end of the day, success belongs to the person who thinks ahead, not just the one who moves first.
All right, part 3, the art of observation, focusing on journaling and photography.
Hobby number 4 is photography. But here's the secret, and this is huge. Photography isn't actually about the camera at all. It's about developing this underrated superpower that trains your brain to notice vital details that everyone else is just walking right past. You start paying attention to light, timing, composition, hidden beauty, and eventually this just bleeds into your everyday life. You start noticing subtle shifts in body language, tiny mistakes, and everyday opportunities. And think about it, people who notice more usually make better decisions. It gives you a massive edge. In a very similar vein, our 5th hobby, journaling, forces those racing thoughts of yours to finally slow down. A lot of people think journaling is just, keeping a diary about your feelings. But in reality, instead of carrying around dozens of chaotic ideas bouncing around inside your head, you're taking those thoughts and getting them out onto paper. And once they're on paper, you can actually look at them objectively. It's like you can finally spot your own bad habits, those flimsy excuses we all make, and your hidden fears. Over time, that journal literally becomes a mirror. And here's why that matters. People who understand themselves almost always outperform people who don't. Building that kind of deep, unflinching self-awareness, it acts as one of the absolute rarest competitive advantages you can possibly develop in life. Let's jump to Part 4, Communication and Borrowed Wisdom through Public Speaking and Reading Biographies. Now, you might be sitting there wondering why a fear that is literally more common than the fear of death, public speaking, and simply reading about historical figures could possibly offer such an incredible edge over the competition. Why are these two specific pursuits so incredibly transformative? Well, let's look at public speaking first. It builds immense confidence, for sure, but it also helps you organize your thoughts perfectly and teaches you how to actually influence people. Because, let's be real, talent alone won't open every door. Powerfully communicated ideas are what actually change lives. Then we have reading biographies. Extremely successful people read biographies for wisdom. Why? Because you are taking decades of lived human experience and compressing it into a few hundred pages. You get to cheaply borrow life lessons from great people who have already paid the painful price of failure. That lets you completely bypass incredibly expensive mistakes in your own life. It's basically a cheat code. Finally, Part 5. The power of patience and the actual timeline of transformation. Because these hobbies are so frustrating at first, most people quit, and they quit incredibly early. But if we look at the data and real-world experience, a clear timeline emerges. If you just stick with it, if you commit to even one of these brain-rewiring hobbies. 6 months. 6 months is the exact amount of time it takes before you begin to think completely differently. The cognitive gears just start turning in a totally new way. But if you push that consistency even further, you hit this massive milestone. 1 year. By the 1 year mark, the mental rewiring will have become so profound that you won't just think differently. You'll visibly act differently in your everyday life. We're talking about your habits, your decisions, your split-second reactions. They will all be fundamentally upgraded. And ultimately, this all builds to the final reward. You start on day 1, right, where it's slow, it's kind of boring. You push to 6 months, and suddenly you're thinking differently. You hit 1 year, and you're acting differently. But after a few years of quiet, delayed gratification, that is when the magic really happens. Everyone around you will just assume you were born with it. They'll call you naturally talented, completely failing to realize that your incredible skills didn't come from genetics. They all started with a simple, deliberate hobby.
So knowing the incredible brain rewiring advantage these pursuits offer over just mindless entertainment, there's really only one question left to ask yourself. Which rare hobby are you going to start today? Are you going to pick up a camera, crack open a journal, study a chessboard, or maybe start learning a new language? But more importantly, if you don't choose to embrace this friction right now, where will your mind be 5 years from today when the rest of the world has completely lost their attention spans? Your unfair advantage is waiting for you. Go get it.